Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start trying to make the base for my dreadnought. Now, I need him to be standing on something to make it look like he is naturally stepping up. So usually a good bit of rubble is a great thing to use as a platform. So in this case, what I've done to begin with is I've just kind of got, can we see, just a damaged piece of Land Raider. So I've basically used the spare parts of a Land Raider to actually use as the starting point for this. Aside from anything else, they're a great, fantastic little hide. So obviously this is the part that you would use for the Land Raider. Is it the Proteus or something like that? The smaller version of the Land Raider, not the Spartan one, but you get parts of it in the kit. And then I've got some spare las cannons that were part of a different kit that I didn't use. So plan's quite simple really, and that is to snap this off as best I can without sort of causing too much damage. There we go. So yeah, you see now, obviously what I can do then is I can see how that might have lined up, which again, because this is a Space Marine, 30k Space Marine, the styling and the fitting is quite good anyway. Right, then I've got to do is decide what's happened to this. So whether or not it's been blown off or, you know, smacked, broken, set on fire or anything like that. Really, I've got to really start making these decisions about what I want the end result to be. So now I'm going to complete it. As I said, this is just a sprue. I think this is from the Sakaran, because I didn't glue all the weapons onto that one. I just stuck to a single layout. As I didn't magnetize, which is a shame because I'd really like it, but you know what, it's given me some spare parts to play around with, and spare parts are really useful for creating battle rubble. So whenever you build a model, always keep the bits. I've snipped the wrong one off this. Unfortunately, there's a 50-50 chance that I got the right one then. I got the wrong one. So as I said, the plan is now to work out what happened to this gun. Did it get blown off, or did it get, you know, broken off, smashed off, ripped off, pulled off? It's not so simple as to say it's off. I've now got to decide what kind of off. So yeah, so this is kind of like my next thing. Now if I wanted it to sort of imply that it had been melted, then obviously the aim would be maybe to find a way to heat up here. If I want to kind of get some heat damage, now obviously the good thing is I have here a little drill. Now the good thing about this little drill is I can use it to create heat effects, heat damage effects. So hopefully that's not too loud, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and damage it a bit. And the thing is, this will actually heat everything up. And then it will actually kind of start damaging it in just the positions that I want it to be damaged. So I'm going to try my best. I'm going to see if I can get this to twist. You see here that I'm managing to get a slight bend in it slowly. I'm using this, I'm tapping it. I don't want it to kind of go all the way through. Just turn that off. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to create a slight bend to create damage without going over the top. So there we can see I've got a kind of, you know, bending with a heat effect going on now, which is what I really want to have. Okay, and then I'm going to put this on here. Okay. key thing is here is getting this lined up to the right place on the gun. Of course, kind of very carefully just moving that together. You can see that I'm just trying to make sure that it's where it should be naturally on the gun. Okay, then from there, obviously lining up my model to where I want him to be as well. So this is the problem I've got now, is I need to decide which direction. So I don't think it's a good idea personally to have the scenery flying off the base. I believe that you should try and keep it all contained within the base. So you can see I'm going to point that gun off this direction more than anything else, yeah? What I'll do is when I glue it onto the base, I'm going to kind of pack underwards with rubble so that it looks like it's kind of laid and almost been pushed into the ground a little bit. Now, one of the problems I've got is this is very uneven, and so when I place it downwards it's kind of rocking a bit. So the next thing really is to flatten this side off a bit, because in the end this is going to be slightly pushed into the earth, so I need it to flatten out here a bit. Now all I've got to do to do that is just kind of get my snippers in to begin with, just to start taking off some of the core, you know, the big bits. Okay. And all I'm doing is I'm just flattening it out a bit there. Yeah, I'm getting there. It's just a bit of a process, unfortunately, to start flattening it. Now, I've got a bit of it kind of shaved off. I can start to use my scalpel then to try and level it out. Probably should have done this beforehand, right? Okay, there we go. It's getting nice and flat now, so it's not going to shake around as much. Now you might be wondering why I haven't put the other gun on yet, and that's because I'm going to have the other part detached. So I'm just going to try and glue that in there, and then I'm going to double check that he is sitting the way I want him to on this. So it's really a matter of kind of putting both together so that they feel like they're going to hold together when the time comes. There we go. I just want to make sure that it all glues the way I want it to. And the other thing is, of course, that I don't want this here kind of falling backwards. I'm trying to get it so it glues slightly raised, because I'm going to then start underpacking it with a bit of modelling putty later on. Unfortunately, this is a bit of a slow process. In fact, what you can do is, if it's doing this and it's wobbling around too much, and like mine is, and it really is, and I don't really want to shave that down any further, to be quite honest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some of this here. So can you see this weapon? I'm going to take off a chunk of it, and then I'm going to kind of put the glue back on here. Yeah, unfortunately, this is just like a bit of a process where you need to find out, you know, what will hold it in exactly the place that you want. Because, you know, it's not an exact science, unfortunately. Oh, I want this to maybe, there we go. So you see what I'm doing there? I'm using it as like a back point to kind of lift that end of the gun up. Yeah, and then I'm going to put glue on there. Now hopefully when I kind of pop modelling putty around this, it'll just look like a part of the sponson that's just broken. Again, just double checking my fit there so that it's not there. That's what I want. I need it to not wobble. That's exactly what I need it to do, is just not be wobbling around. Okay, so I need to hold it now and get that glued on. Hate when they don't glue down. Come on, glue. Yeah, I just need this to hold in place now. It's frustrating me because it just keeps not moving. It just keeps moving around. There, and then hopefully when that dries, it should give me a nice platform. And you can see from here now, I've got something a bit flatter to actually work with my dreadnought that you can physically stand on. Now obviously it's from there, it's just thinking about how to twist it to get the positioning exactly where I want it to be. You know, sometimes I need to be better at thinking things through. You know, because sometimes I think that I've put things in the right place and then they're not quite where I expected them to be. There we go, that's better. There, so that is where I want that. I want that whole gun on the base. I don't want it hanging off. I really hate guns hanging off bases. You know, bits and bobs hanging off bases. If I'm making a display base, I want it to be contained within the natural size of the base. There we go. Then he can kind of be just gently sitting on it slightly. So if he's lifting up onto it, great. Once that's dry, I'm then gonna try and, you know, try and see if I can flatten it down this way a bit more, because what I don't want is I don't want it to feel like his foot is hovering over it, because obviously that's not the aim I'm going for. So the idea being that I would then start to flatten this out. So I'll give it a chance to dry properly, and then I'm going to try and flatten it out. Now while I'm doing that, I want to decide what I'm going to do with this part here, the other side of the broken gun. So as you can see, I've got another part of a gun here that I can use. Then what I want to do is I want to think about how much I need to use there. And then again, I'm just going to get the bit that I want, which is the front part. Okay, got that off. Now, time to decide how I want this placed on here. So I want that kind of to be broken off. So I want it to feel like it's really took a good hard hit, this thing completely sheared off the land raider that it was attached to. So get that on there. And then again, I want this to be broken downwards. Yeah, can we see? So maybe like down here, smacked off, broken off. What you got to remember as well is these are solid metal pipes that are designed to take the heat of a las gun. So I'm not certain that I really want to show it snapped more than anything, because that feels like, I don't know, snapped off there just might not feel perfect. But so I might kind of have it downwards a bit. From there, obviously, it's a good idea maybe just to build up something on this side as well. So again, I'm just going to grab hold of a bit of this. Just to kind of create a prop there, you know, just something to prop it up a bit on. As I go through and I start the modelling putty, some of these little bits will be hidden, and the bits that won't be hidden will start to kind of give the impression of machine parts kind of that have been maybe pushed deeper inside you to the battle. Again, I want it kind of just falling downwards on this one, so it's going to be like that. It'd be nice if it actually stuck to this instead of sticking to my finger. There we go, and it's just starting to give the impression of being more like battle damage. Okay, on the actual base, I'm starting to build up a base now of damage. Yeah, we can see we've got the split cannon. It's been, part of it's been bent as the flow of the battle's gone on. So it's starting to build up the kind of image that I really want of it now, of a damaged, you know, an active battlefield where things are basically getting smashed and broken. Okay, and then of course I want to start adding, you know, adding some interesting little components to it now, just to see how they go. So I might want to sort of do wiring. Now I'm going to do some wiring here. Part of me feels like I would rather just create some wiring from scratch, really, you know, so that it'll bend where I want it to and kind of, you know, flow down where I want it to. Yeah, I'm really tempted just to actually go away and create my own green stuff. But by the same logic, I think obviously just roll that off there and then it looks like it's snapped and come detached from wherever it's come from. There we go, so we've got some randomly snapped wiring there, and again, as I build up a bit of model and put around it to represent, like, you know, like mud or dirt, you know, just the soil of the battlefield, it'll start to cover in some key areas. Okay, and then I can just decide on any other little random parts that I want scattered around, really. So, you know, I'm just going to try and find a nice little one, maybe from the actual Land Raider kit, the Land Raider Spartan kit, that I might like the look of, that might kind of add to the decoration, I suppose, would be one way to put it. I had a little bit in front of me before, I've misplaced it and it's annoying me now. I had a little tiny bit in front of me before. It was a part of the weapon mount. So I was hoping to put a little bit of a mount on it, actually. It seems to have decided to go for a walk while I've been doing stuff. Yep, there it is, found it. Right. So again, right. So again, because this is like a Land Raider's weapon, it might be good, again, to add a little bit more of the Land Raider pieces to it, to give the impression of, again, a Land Raider that's been damaged, had a weapon blown off. Obviously really emulating the Horus Heresy and the damage that's being caused. Now the question is, where does it look good? I don't think there's any right or wrong answer to doing stuff like this. It's just about kind of popping stuff on there, seeing how you feel about it, and then moving things around until it feels like it's in the right place. And again, don't worry about the little gaps, okay? Because I'm gonna cover them up later on with bits of modelling putty. And this is, again, just make sure though that you're not interfering with the positioning of your model about where you want it to be stood. Okay, you know what, so I'm happy with that so far. What I'm going to have to do, obviously, stop the video for now, let it dry, and then I can start building up a modelling putty around it. Okay, so that's started to dry off a bit now. Now, oddly enough, to begin with, although I'm probably going to use, I mean, I'm not going to stick to this because I might change my mind, but later on I'm likely to use Milliput or modelling putty in order to, you know, finish some details. But just to build up the main area for now, I'm actually going to use clay because it's a far cheaper option to start molding molding the mud with. As you can see here, I can just get right in there very, very quickly, and obviously I can just start molding it and flatten it in. And this is just your bog standard air drying clay. You can see what I'm doing to begin with is I'm just trying to get it under key points, and I'm just trying to build up. I'm really kind of trying to suggest that this thing is being pushed into the mud, and that's another reason I like clay. It's because it's basically mud, which means it's really, really great for pushing in, creating the effect that I want, which is of course of a very muddy battlefield. So yeah, I'm a great believer in using clay in the early stages of building up a base. It's quick to dry as well, so your first layers will dry pretty quickly, unlike modelling putty, which can take hours. You can push it, you can see you can push it quite easily to form into the areas that you want it to fall into. So yeah, I'm a great believer that it just works better at this early stage rather than the modelling clay, which can be, you know, hard to control, hard to manipulate. And you can see it's going very quick for me to just build up the effect that I want. In fact, you can start to see it's kind of drying already. So, you know, also have to work kind of quick at the same time while I'm doing this. I find as well it's a lot more forgiving if you make a mistake than modelling putty, because you can just very quickly pull it and then reshape it. I think one of the things is though, it's probably good to keep a little bit of water around as you go, just so you can dab your fingers in to make it flow a bit better, which I haven't got in front of me right now, but it's alright. I'll get this done quicker enough anyway. Okay, and again, you can see I've got a little bit in there that I need to get my modelling putty into, my clay into. And again, I'm just going to push this in here. So what I'm doing now is I'm starting to cover up all of these little bits, building up my mound, building up my area. And as I said, I think just compared to, if you do a price comparison of clay to modelling putty, I think obviously you'll find that it's a better, more economical use of your money when you're building up the first little bit. You know, I've knocked that off, so I might as well take advantage of the fact that I've just knocked that off. Lost my modelling putty into that little hole there, and then that way I can just simply push that in. There we go. Yeah. Not ideal, didn't want to do it like that, but you know what, it worked. It just did what I wanted it to do. Okay, So I'm almost done. As you can see, it's nice and quick doing it this way to build up a kind of soft mound and build up that kind of everything's being pushed into it effect that I really want to get hold of. It's starting to come along now, and it's starting to push into where I want it. Now obviously I don't like forcing too much on all at once, so I'd rather let this dry and then come back later on and build up again, which I think with where I've currently got it, I think that'll be my next plan. So this clay here is dirt cheap. You can just find it anywhere, and it's not that expensive, and it's just easy to manipulate and easy to mold in. And you can see that it's very quickly building up the impression that this thing is being forced in. Obviously another double quick check to make sure I've not knocked anything off. Yeah, so that my dread's still actually going where I expect it to go, which is fine. It's coming along all right. Okay, I'm just gonna obviously let this dry for a little bit, and then when it's dried a little bit I'll come on and then add a bit more. Okay, so as you can see, this has sort of started to dry now, and it's started to kind of form. Of course, as happens with clay, it does shrink a tiny bit, not too much. It's not a major problem, but it does shrink a tiny bit, and it can pull away from where you initially planned it to be. I'm going to add a bit more clay in some key areas, because I am liking the idea of finishing as much off as possible. So really what it's about now is me pushing it into in between. Particularly down there, you can see I don't really want to. It's a great, very fine tool, and it will get in here. This, I don't really want to get it covered in. You know, it's just finding a tool that I can use. I know some of you might thinking, well, whether or not just set this in the clay, but unfortunately, I have found from experience that plastic does not always do what you expect it to do, and it's best to glue the plastic onto the base first. I've tried to do it in the past with a model where I tried to put the model into the clay, set the model into the clay, and it did not give me the result I was after. It went very strange. I can only really describe it as that. It just did not turn out the way I wanted it to. No, I mean, I am going to obviously set some parts of this, and that's not hopefully not going to be a problem, but for now I'm just going to try and this here now. Really, it's just trying to do this part and get it nice and molded. Okay, I'm going to see, and it's starting to fill it in now. It's starting to build up quite nicely. Then I just use the Das brand clay. There's nothing special about what I've got here, you know. It's just Das grey. I'm actually using this stuff on my boar boys, and I might do a video of that. My Savage Oak boar boys, I've decided to go for a terracotta tundra, so I'm actually making a clay base set up for them, which again I'm hoping will look nice when it's done. I think actually it looks quite good on the first one that I did. But of course, it's how they look when they're all together. Yeah, I'm going for a terracotta effect. So all of the Gloomspire gits, they're kind of in they're in the caverns below the terracotta, and then the Orruks live up top. And I like the idea of kind of having this, how do I put it, like they have almost a sort of like a relationship between each other, that the Gloomspire gets having the land below, and they're doing all the mining and getting all the resources, and then they'll sell it to them above, who will of course then provide different resources. Like obviously I know everyone like imagine Savage Orcs as being primitive, but you know, I like the idea that maybe Savage Orcs, Savage Orruks, are fully capable of creating dyes and things like that. So I'm thinking of then having the Gloomspire gits, you know, like maybe, you know, they're using the ochre to create dyes, orange dyes for the Gloomspire git. So I like the idea of doing that. I like that kind of idea of orcs living in a kind of proper ecology, you know. I know 40k orcs are more, you know, they are a fully autonomous society because of the way that their fungus and things work, but I like the idea of something a bit different for Age of Sigmar orcs, that they have to actually create a functional society to some extent. We'll trade with each other. I'm waffling again anyway. Here we go. Right, let's have a look at this. There we go. So I've got that kind of very heavily set in now. You can see, and then of course I'm trying my best not to kind of drift off the side. Now I will probably try and get in these tiny little bits with modelling putties, but overall I've now started to develop the main part of my base. With this, it's going to kind of sit on it. Now the next thing I need to decide is how much of a crushing effect I want to make there. So it might not seem much, but I don't really want it to feel like it's crushing the weapon too much, because that's not really what's going to be happening. But as you can see, we've got quite a, hopefully you can see, you've got quite a big gap there between the foot and the weapon, which doesn't look good either. So I've got two approaches here. I can either snap the foot and reposition the foot, but I don't really want to do that either. And the next obvious piece of logic is maybe just see if I can trim down. See that, just that little box there, just maybe cut that down a bit so that it's a bit flatter to the rest of it. And we're only talking a tiny little bit what I'll be doing here. There. Obviously that's going to be hidden by the foot. Let's see if that makes it a bit better. It's improving it a bit. I think I can go even flatter than that. Potentially in the scalp we could shave a bit more off. It's really more about looking at it from that side, seeing how far along it can go. There we go. Push it a bit further down. There we go. So it's just a little bit flatter to it without it. You know, obviously this is very, you know, heavy duty equipment. This isn't something that will just crunch under the weight of something. So something like a dreadnought, it'll be putting its foot down. It might indent it a bit, but I don't want to feel like it's completely crushing it either. Still, it will look odd if the foot isn't reasonably flat on it. So there we go, it's getting there, yeah. And again, it's about trying to create a slant this way as well. That's what I'm trying to go for, you see. There we go, that's starting to look a bit more real now. That was starting to look like it's actually stepping on it. Excellent. Now the question is, do I glue this on straight away or do I wait a while? Because really it's going to be hard work to clean that up, to paint that, if I don't. But it's starting to look a lot better, that. It's starting to look like he's really putting his foot down up on that thing, which is the aim that I was going for. So I'm really pleased about that. There we go. So it's not dried yet, and it's going to take a while to dry. And then obviously I'll start filling in some gaps. Now the next is starting to think of some finishing touches for it. So always a big question of when are you really done with these things, because in your head you could literally just carry on for ages adding things, and you know that it's that question of when you're overdoing it. So what I was thinking is one of these pieces here. Now this is like a connector point for the gun, so this would kind of be around about here. Now I don't want it attached, but again I do want it on there to show that it's, you know, got an actual connector, you know, proper connection point. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get a bit of glue on there. Then I'm going to have that kind of smacked onto there, and that just adds a little bit more character. Okay, just adding a little bit more stuff going on. Now obviously the next one is this gaping hole here, so what am I going to do with that? Well, I was thinking really it should have maybe the top part of a targeter on it. But then I was thinking, well, okay, what might it look like maybe if that's been ripped out completely? And I was looking at some of my spare wiring here. There's potentially being a thing, you know, so like maybe the target has just been ripped out and then the wirings come with it. And I think that's what I've decided to do here. So again, I know it's still a bit of wet, but I'm going to get some glue and I'm just going to push this. There we go, so it's partially in. So even though the targeter has disappeared, it's like the wiring has been ripped out as it's come along. So there we go. Okay, hopefully you can see my process there. And now I've got a lovely display base from a Dreadnought. It's still got to dry, and I've still got to add a tiny little touch of modelling, you know, modelling putty here and there just to close a couple of the gaps. But hopefully when that's painted up in a Traitor Legion appearance, that is really going to look fantastic.